Welcome to Optimove Connect 2025. In this spotlight session, we're going to be looking at a company that has gone from the assembly line to positionless marketing. I'm joined by some incredible guests today. And before we get into that, I would like you to know that we are diving into some fantastic topics within positionless marketing. Our discussion will center on how FDJ United moved from a more rigid assembly line approach to a flexible, integrated, and data-driven marketing strategy. I'm joined by Rachel, Global Head of Customer Marketing at FDJ United. Rachel, welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm also joined by Georgi, who is the Head of Marketing Transformation, a key technical expert in FDJ United's tech firsthand. Would you like to just say a little bit, guys, about what your roles are and how that's going for you?
Yeah, my name is Georgi Pepelyankov, and I am the head of marketing transformation. I head the marketing technology teams and the audience management teams, which means that we kind of handle some of the technical aspects of the marketing process in the company, also working on automation and how we use technology and tools to help Rachel and the other teams.
Perfect. And my third guest, Optimove's very own Paul O'Shea, who is the VP of Customer Success. He's worked very closely with a lot of brands, especially FDJ. Paul, thanks for coming in today. Could you tell us a little bit about what your role looks like?
Sure. Thank you, Ross. Great to be here. So my role basically is when a client chooses the Optimove product and platform and technology, our team work very closely to ensure we drive their value, delivering against their use cases to ensure they get maximum, ROI from the investment they make in us. And it's really a partnership approach that we bring. So I guess our team's role is to ensure that their team are empowered, can unlock the features and capabilities, and drive basically revenue and ROI for their organization. So that's what we're hoping to achieve with them over the many years ahead.
We come with pain and problems, and Paul and team help us solve them.
Yeah. But we love solving those with you, and it's the spirit of the partnership that they come up that we enjoy the most. So.
Absolutely.
All right, let's dive into this awesome topic. And Rachel, I'm going to start with you if that's all right.
Sure.
Can you give us an overview on how FDJ United and how's its approach been to marketing?
Well, it's a complicated approach. So FDJ United's got multiple brands, multiple markets and countries that we cover, multiple products, so casino and sportsbook. And what that's created is quite a lot of complexity in marketing. I look after the always-on marketing team, and that is a transition we're trying to move away from sort of bespoke, local, ad hoc, relatively inefficient ways of doing marketing to something more automated, something more simplified and standardized where we can. Optimove's been a big part of that, allowing us to kind of unlock automation, use data. And that means when we've got our more local market, bespoke product approach, we can spend more time testing and optimizing there and less time on the kind of more menial tasks that we need to do. So it's a transformation for marketing at the moment, I would say.
Sure. And you mentioned Optimove. Going back to you again, Paul, how would you define positionless marketing? And Paul, why would you say it's so important today?
Well, I think it's so important because we want to help our clients, transcend and move away from old ways of working. You mentioned the phrase assembly line, which is, I think, organizations the scale of FDJ United would have had multiple teams in a sequential approach trying to execute marketing campaigns. And as we saw in a great presentation yesterday, I don't want to steal your thunder, that would have taken a much longer period of time. And I think with technology such as the Optimove platform, it does allow an organization to give an individual the tools to not be as dependent on other internal teams to do their role effectively. So it's giving people the agility and the capabilities to do everything in one role rather than having sequential members of a team deliver a project. So really it's about moving away from that assembly line concept to one individual user being capable of actually achieving an idea to execution in a much shorter space of time. It doesn't mean we lose experts or specializations when needed, but hopefully it does give clients like FDJ the ability to be more dynamic, reactive, agile, and hopefully more competitive and achieve their results in market.
Brilliant, fantastic, great answer. And Georgie, when did you first come into or hear about positionless marketing, and what stood out for you?
I think the first time we heard it was actually on last year's Optimove Connect. I held Penny's opening speech there. And even before that, we have already been customers of Optimove for a few months. So we came to that conference to learn more about how to use the platform. Because originally our thought was we are going to use Optimove, first of all, to streamline processes, but more than anything else, to find ways to utilize the massive amounts of data we have on customers and products in a much more advanced way that we were doing before. And then after we came and heard what Penny said, it clicked that actually the technology is enabling our people who are more curious, who are more driven, and they want to have further ownership of the end-to-end process. They can then use platforms like Optimove and other self-serve solutions that we have at FDJ United, so that they have a bit more accountability and end-to-end kind of drive of processes.
It sounds like it's been a busy, fun year. It's only been a year. What would you say a year on from now would look like using the same strategy?
I think it will be as busy, hopefully more fun, because it has been quite challenging. Technical integrations take their toll, and we have now been over the kind of the biggest challenges, I'm sure. So from now on, it's more about how teams are getting acquainted with the Optimove platform. It takes some getting used to. And I'm sure Rachel will later share more about how the teams have actually adapted to using the platform. But yesterday we heard from Penny and from Shai exciting new developments in the platform. We're very much looking forward to being able to use them. So I'm sure that will also come with some work on our side to prepare.
Fantastic. Rachel, when FDJ, once you committed to transitioning to positionless marketing, what internal changes were necessary to make that happen?
Quite a lot, to be honest, and it's probably still something that is being worked on. But essentially, it was decided to move away from assembly line pretty much when we got Optimove, but also, like we said last year, that kind of gave us the confidence when we heard more about Positionless and how other customers of Optimove were looking at it, to kind of go full throttle into a new way of working. So essentially, we made sure that we were training everyone within the retention team. There's 97 people in retention for FDJ. That is a lot of people with a lot of different skills. But we decided rather than get a small group to learn about Optimove, we trained everyone, and Claire and Paul were a big part of that. Claire was fantastic in doing lots and lots of training.
Yeah.
We also did bespoke training ourselves. We got some special super users, we call them, and champions to learn maybe a little bit more technical and relevant stuff for our own business, and they've done further training. So we've made sure that everyone has the same standard, and then we just had to set about making sure that we had proper user cases for people to try, templates and things like that, so that people felt like they had confidence. There's some people in the team that had never even sent an email before, so it was a big step. I'd say we've achieved it. We've still got maybe a variation within the 97 of super users, like I say, who maybe are the go-to people for the more complex areas, but it's fair to say I think everyone now has at least sent an email or an SMS and generated a campaign, and it's been fantastic, to be honest. It's been an amazing achievement.
Just a bit to add to that, it's the change is also happening in other teams, not just in marketing, because the way that we used to operate, it involved many technical experts from different teams and disciplines. Now they are kind of, in the last year, they have adapted processes. We have replaced, built, and changed certain components, part of our platform, for example, bonus execution. And this meant that as the marketeers were trained and learning how to use Optimove, we also had to adapt a bit in other places, which went surprisingly well. And I think now everybody sees why all of this change had to happen.
Can I jump in as well? Because I think stars did align with where I think FDJ were in your journey and evolution, your past experiences with other technologies, that you kind of had this, I guess, enlightening moment when Positionless was proposed. But the key message was, I think, and what I really appreciate about your efforts is that it does take people to make the change happen.
Yes.
And technology can only do so much. But what's really critical with a technology transformation like an Optimove ecosystem, which does everything in one, your organization has to change in terms of those processes as you described. And that's what, for me, is the most critical piece and can often be the hardest piece, because sometimes I guess companies feel they can buy a software but maintain the ways they used to work. And
Absolutely.
the big penny dropping moment for me is talking to my clients who have actually understood that, no, we need to rethink completely how internally processes that we used to run may need to be reordered to achieve positionless with Optimove's technology.
Yeah.
And you've done that, which I think is really admirable, and it's why it's a great example of the success, hopefully, that we will have together in years to come.
Yeah, and just to add, like we landed on a, I would say, midterm solution of training everyone, getting people to be positionless and sort of 360. But now we're looking forward, I think, aren't we, towards more automation? What are the skills we need there? So it's going to be quite a fluid experience over the next year as well, I think, where we might reshape the organisation a bit further to support that. We're learning as we use the tool, so it's very hard to make a decision before you use the tool exactly what the team should be, but luckily we've got good groups of people that are very agile and quite happy to evolve with the tool.
And as you say, in the past we've had the experience working with other systems, with other pieces of software, and it was a kind of a bitter lesson to learn the hard way that if we try to use the software, but we try to use it the way that we have done things before, things clash and don't work efficiently, and we end up kind of building stack of legacy software that doesn't necessarily do the trick.
And I think what we really value is your bravery to go, yeah, we need to change things that we've done a certain way, and you need to convince key stakeholders to actually say, look, we know this is not going to be something you may want to do, but for the greater good, we need to do it. And you've been very brave, I think, at leading the charge internally, and we're very appreciative of that as well. It is critical.
Well, I'd like to go back on that, actually, Paul. Like, let's just go back a little bit here. When FDJ expressed their interest in moving to positionless marketing, what immediately came to you, or what do you believe made them a strong candidate for it?
As I said, I think it was their own experiences. Like Georgie alluded to their past with different technologies and how they had to obviously build teams and processes around those technologies. And where did that take them? And I think lessons learned from both of you over time was, what did that give to the organization in terms of value, but what did it create in terms of maybe tech debt or maybe historical rigid processes that are not scalable? And I think just your own learning from being exposed to different technologies and different ways of working, and then maybe hearing new concepts around a technology that may free you from those limitations and unlock the capabilities of individuals and the curiosity and the agility and those that want to take ownership but have the tool to do it, was probably the key thing that I recall from our conversations of, them, I guess, recognizing the potential that they could achieve for FDJ with this transition. And it's still early in the journey, I would completely agree, but it's a really exciting journey, and that's what really gives me fire every day.
Speaking about the journey on your side, are you encountering any cultural challenges in the organization? And if so, how are you addressing them?
I think with change, it's normal. Every time we have seen this, it doesn't need to be a software-driven change. It may be an organizational change. It may be a ways of working change. People are two types of people: those that embrace change and those that usually kind of are resisting or are fearful of change. And I think, as usual, very clear, transparent communication and trying to explain to people the rationale and where are we getting to, what's the direction, why are we going through all of this helps a lot. And sometimes I think seeing is believing. I think with Optimove that has been probably the biggest factor, because a lot of integration, a lot of technical work, a lot of changes in ways of working for Rachel's teams and for others. But ultimately, when the system went live and when we were able then to send our first campaigns and people actually saw how we can see uplift and how we can measure the performance of those campaigns, then suddenly something clicked and people understood, okay, so this is why we did this for so long.
So there has been a couple of challenges
Yes.
with, would you put it down to personalities or just the way the structure?
I think it's, first of all, it's structurally, because we have been organized in certain ways for certain reasons from the past, and now we had to change some of that. But also, yes, of course, there is a personality angle to it. Some people are far more kind of embracing towards change, and maybe that's not universal to every type of change. But in this case, it did happen, and I think it took some learning and some getting used to how are we now getting along with the new system.
It's the beauty of having different people in an organization, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rachel,
Yes.
are there still any instances where you're relying on assembly?
Yes,
line?
most definitely. We did the presentation yesterday. You know, there was a point where every single thing we did was assembly line,
Right.
and
Okay.
everything took weeks, months, and it was very painful. We're far from that now, but there still are some sort of more critical, complex
Yeah.
user cases where we often depend on analytics team, for example,
Yeah.
for insights. We still have a bonus team that build bonuses manually, so there's assembly line situations there.
Yeah.
But there's something that Georgie and I are looking at as well. How can we do something with that in the future? There's tools in Optimove we might be interested in. There's other ways we might approach it. And then creative, of course, is often something that we may want to have a bit more of a specialist look. So we have a standard tool now where that is a self-serve tool to allow to remove that assembly line process. But now and again, there's a big new concept like a loyalty program, for example,
Right.
where you want that specialist person to add a layer into it that we know that's going to make it successful, because we can't expect everyone to be an expert, but we can expect everyone to at least be able to do the basics to serve. So yeah, I'd say there's still elements, but probably less than half of what it used to be.
So would you say that you're close to fully achieving positionless marketing? You know, or have you?
I think we have definitely people who are now able to execute on their own completely. Probably not everybody, and that's probably something that we don't want to, not a place that we want to be right now. But as Rachel said, we are addressing the parts of our processes where we are still relying on technical expertise, and we're trying to reduce them to absolute bare minimum. And obviously there are things that are inevitable. For example, creative is one of those. We would always have to have new concepts, new creative designs to be put into the general population, so to speak, so that marketeers can then use them. And additionally, there are big events and big campaigns that need to be planned in a bit of a different way, that involve, for example, brand team, the local market teams, and other parts of the organization where this is still necessary. But generally, I think maybe in a year's time, when we sit down and speak again together, we're going to be much, much closer. I think, as we showed yesterday, we had a slide with the spectrum. We are just over the half line. I think next year, hopefully, we're way over on the right.
I believe.
And just to add, yesterday there was quite a focus on AI and how we can adopt that. And we're also looking at AI ourselves to think of how can that help remove some of the assembly line, but also help us test things a bit quicker and try maybe using it for content and copy, so that we're not depending on language experts all the time, that kind of stuff. So we're adopting things on top of Optimove as well to kind of help us along. But again, here and there, so that we don't over-rely maybe on AI, because there's a long way to go.
But I think, like you said, it is a journey, but I think you've moved the biggest boulders. And I think now you're just looking at those remaining components that can just take you to the next 5-10%.
Yeah, the icing on the cake.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah, Nick Badminton yesterday in the closing speech, he said something very, very important with AI specifically, that if you rely on AI for quality, you're probably going to have trouble. But to augment what people do today, and just to give an example with Rachel, with translations, for example, and localization with languages that we don't have, we still need to have a human there to validate. Right. But instead of writing the whole text, they can get a copy that is drafted and then just review it and make some fine-tunes and some changes here and there. It just cuts the time to market drastically.
So what are the biggest lessons you've learned from this transition, and what advice would you give to other marketeers that are going to go through this transition? Is there any golden nuggets you can give?
I think we did make a couple of mistakes, to be honest, in the beginning. And I think the mistake we made was perhaps, Georgie, some other team members, we spent a lot of time with Paul, with Optimove in the early days, and then we brought the team in later and kind of said, right, here we go, here's a tool, we're going to train you. And I think one of my advice would be involve the team sooner, get them inspired a bit sooner, get them to come along to that, to feel excited, and then the transition will be easy, because I think some people struggle to maybe get the vision at that point that we had already invested in. So I think that would be my advice, is bring more of the team in from the beginning and talk about the benefits for them and how it's going to save them time and what it's going to bring them earlier before you start to train, because then they'll kind of be an appetite for it.
Right.
I think so. That's one of the learnings.
You've got to get them behind it.
Get them
before
behind
you
it,
start
so
teaching,
it doesn't feel like something they have to do. It's something
Yeah.
they want to do, and I think that was one of the learnings that we probably.
And that's not an easy thing to do, because when you ask people, for example, to use a new tool, they usually try to map what they do today into the new world, and that's not always possible. So I think change management is very important, and in our case, I think we kind of overlooked the importance of change management in the beginning, and then afterwards we try to do it much better. But it's important also when you are, for example, trying to gather the requirements of what you want to achieve, not to dilute it too much with what you're doing today, and be a bit firmer on where we want to be. Because otherwise you end up with some halfway situations where you're neither using a new system appropriately, nor you're actually serving your use case very well, and you end up with frustration. So I think that's why you need to decide very carefully exactly what you want to get out of it, and then move very deliberately towards that.
Thanks, Tim. Would you like to add anything to that, Paul?
Not really. They've summed it up really well. Yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing I would add is that, these kind of large transformations, they're not easy. They will always come with challenges and hurdles. I guess it's about how we deal with those. And I would just say to any other organization looking to learn from your steps, these were 2 great pieces of advice. There probably will be other things that you encounter on your journey, but I think the destination and where you can get your organization to with this technology far outweighs, I guess, any challenge you do encounter, I hope. So good luck to you, and it's going to be really good to work with you over the next couple of years to see where we take this positionless concept with FDJ United.
Thank you, Paul, and I must say also thank you very much for you and the team for the patience of dealing with us, because
it's mutual.
Yeah.
You know how often we come up with new things.
I know, but look, if it wasn't like that, it would be dull. And that's what we enjoy and we embrace. So thank you for challenging us and keeping us looking to the future and innovating. It's what it should be in this kind of a partnership. So thank you very much. It means a lot.
Thank you. You've been watching and listening to Optimove's Connect 2025 Spotlight session, and I've been joined by FDJ's Rachel, Georgie, and Optimove's very own Paul. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross.